If that person's not the one, like eliminate them soon. Don't waste another 5 years on something that's not going to go anywhere.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And today we've got a very exciting episode with my friend Handlers. So, Laurie is the author of two international best-selling books about sex and happiness. So, get ready, buckle up. This is going to be a lot of fun. She
Yay.
has been talking about she's been an expert in the field of sexuality, intimacy, and relationships, and has taught transformational workshops on topics ranging from releasing past emotional trauma and fearless communication and sacred sexuality since 1978. That is amazing. Laurie and her husband, Michael Gibson, offer relationship coaching, workshops, and retreats on extraordinary love. Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amanda. What a pleasure to be here. I love your
I'm
enthusiasm. I can feel it over the sound waves.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I love love. So I'm really excited. And you're also the first intimacy, relationship expert that we've had on the show. So I'm excited to explore a new topic with you. So,
Great.
Laurie, something I ask a lot of entrepreneurs is why this? So I am so curious, what drew you to this expertise?
Okay. Well, I think I've been this way since I was a little girl. I was, watched like a hawk by my mother and my grandmother because they thought I was going to get in trouble because I was sexually precocious. And I followed the path of transformation and spirituality since the 70s. And then I, but I always knew there was more. Like I knew there was more to sex and I knew there was more to spirituality than people were talking about, but nobody was really touching the subject. In 1986, I read an article in the Yoga Journal, which was delivered to my apartment at that time by mail. And there was an article about Tantra. And I read that article. I still have it in this file cabinet behind me. I still have that article from the 80s where it talked about sacred sexuality. It talked about Tantra. And I went, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And then I finally found a class because there was no internet in the 80s. I found a class. I went to class. Day one of class, I went, this is it. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. There is more to sex than this, in and out thing. And there's more to talk about. And there's more connection to spirit. But, I, up until that time, didn't know where to look. So I made the decision in 1996 that this was going to be my life. I was already a corporate trainer. I was already a teacher. I had already done workshops. In 1978, the workshop I did was called Body, Mind, and Spirit for Women. So it was a lot of embodiment practices, which there wasn't even a word for then. But the sex part, that came in the 90s. Like it was always in the background, lurking,
Right.
but I didn't know how to speak about it.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah,
And especially a topic like this, it's, not as commonly talked about even now in 2025. We still have a hard time saying the word sex, and I was like, goodness, I'm going to have to talk to my assistant about, how we cut up the reels to do this to still get all the reach and everything, because there's still a lot
yes.
of suppression of the conversation around it. It makes people, it's a bit taboo, isn't it? So, yeah,
So
I love having you here, though.
you have to make the E into a three.
That's it, right?
S3X, that's one of the
Mhm.
code ways to deal with it. You just spell it differently. I want to tell you that the titles of the books, Sex and Happiness, and then there's a subtitle for each one. Years ago, I had a podcast for 15 years and first started as Tantra Cafe, but I got like tired of just interviewing Tantra people. And my manager of the station at the time said to me, you should rename your program Sex and Happiness They're the two most searched for words on Google. And so my
That makes
ratings
sense.
and my podcast and everything went way up the minute I changed the title from Tantra Cafe to Sex and Happiness, the Sex and Happiness podcast.
Well, there's a great marketing lesson in that for all of us about the clarity
Yeah.
and really speaking to what people want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So you're doing podcast touring. Is there another book on the horizon?
Yes, actually one for couples. My husband and I are halfway through the Sex and Happiness book for Extraordinary Love for couples. So that's
That's
there.
so
And
exciting.
then I have a book I wrote a long time ago, but I never published it. It's called The Owner's Manual. So, when you get a car, you get this thick book that says, this is how you operate the brakes. This is the windshield fluid getting replaced. This is what every so often you need a checkup. Well, no one gets that for their body. So I wrote a book called The Owner's Manual, which likens the body to the operating system of a car. And I think I don't know what I'll do with that yet. I may just self-publish that and put that out because people don't really have any idea how to operate. They're just flying blind.
You're absolutely right about that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a chance to just tell, well, you have a chance right now to tell everyone like
Mm.
one thing that they should know about sex and happiness. If they never pick up another book about it, they get this one chance to just tell them something they should know. What would you love for them to know?
Sex and happiness are totally connected, and it's not necessarily having sex. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to see my partner and I'm going to have sex today. It's more that if you're blocked in what's called the second chakra of your body in the Hindu system, if you're blocked in the sex area, which is the centers of pleasure and pain and the memories of pleasure and pain and your creativity. So if you're blocked there, then it's really hard to be happy. It's hard because if a
Mm,
person's not using their creativity to the fullest, or at least expressing themselves, and they're blocked there, then they're probably blocked in their channel for having happiness. And that's an individual. It doesn't matter whether you have a relationship or a friend with benefit or whatever. It it's like the sex chakra and the throat chakra are connected. The sex has creativity, creation, like creating babies, but creating computers and cell phones, and all the creation comes from that pleasure pain center, and then expressing it comes from the throat. And if I withhold or I'm too afraid to express myself, my creativity, then I'm
mm.
blocked, and that has everything to do with happiness.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so if they never read anything, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Like if you want to
Yeah.
unlock your creativity, you want to be
Yes.
fully and authentically expressed. And that makes a lot of sense. And I know you're backing up what you're saying with thousands of years of spiritual practice. But there's also a lot of good science around this stuff too. So, dear listener, if you're at all skeptical about what she's saying, I invite you to do some of your own research as well, because the more holistically healthy you can be, the more happy you're going to be overall. And this is a really, really big piece of your performance.
It's
So
true.
good.
It's true. Yes. And you
Yeah.
don't need a partner to be expressed and to unblock. You can unblock those things yourself as an individual.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's so good. So I am so curious too, like so you work with your husband, right? Like you guys have a coaching program?
Yes, I work separately and then we work together. So I've been at it longer than him. I'm 20 years older than him. So I've been at it longer than he has. He was a network engineer. But he was kind of a sex geek. Like he did a lot. I said to him, the first time he ever touched me, I said to him, "Where did you learn how to touch a woman?" And he said to me, "I Googled it."
That's awesome.
So yes, we do programs together. We do specific programs on extraordinary love for couples and for singles. For the couples, we find that couples get stuck in a few different ruts. Like familiarity really does breed contempt. that whole Shakespeare thing. So we unblock couples from either arguing all the time, even though they love each other and they can't stop arguing. So we unblock that. We unblock couples who have grown too familiar. They've neutralized their polar attraction for each other. So we work with that. And we also work with couples who are just too busy, or things changed when they had a kid, or the kids grew and now they don't know what to do. They love each other, they don't want to leave, but they're more like best friends than they are like lovers. So that's one
Mm,
piece. We also work with singles who don't want to make the same mistake when they're meeting somebody new who could be a potential partner. They don't want to blow it in the first conversation. They don't know when to express boundaries or when to state, like, this is authentically who I am, for fear, this person won't like them or whatever. And so we teach them to say it, to speak their truth and to say their boundaries and to say their preferences when they meet somebody new. So if that person's not the one next, you know what I mean? Like, eliminate them soon. Don't waste another 5 years on something that's not going to go anywhere. So that's what he and I
totally.
do together. We do that piece together. And then I work with people in containers that focus on spirituality, sexuality, and shamanism.
Very, very, very cool. I'm
Thank
so
you.
curious about the business side of what you do because, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I'm assuming that
Okay.
people have some kind of a sex life. Like there's all kinds of people that do it. And you've chosen to pursue the topic and the subject matter in a particular direction. Can you talk to me a little bit about, making something like this work as a business, as a coaching business? What have you discovered really matters to pursuing something you're clearly very passionate about, very knowledgeable about? In my experience working with coaches, knowledge is rarely the problem. But I think what's really remarkable about what you've done, beyond the core expertise is that you have monetized this really well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What would you say to somebody who is a geek or a nerd in their particular realm, and they're maybe a little worried about making it work?
Well, I mean, for me, just when I started, a lot of people already knew me in the workshop space and also in the world of transformation. So I used to work at Landmark Education, which is like transformation, but it's this only. It's not like this down. So when I moved over into like the whole being, I just told people what I was doing and they saw the difference in me. They saw me before and then they saw me after and they all said, I'll have what she's having. So that's how it began. Like I just started doing classes up and down the East Coast of the US, and my classes were full. People were just like, I want that. I want what she has. She's different. She's fully expressed. And I would just say that it has to do with being credible. Like the first thing is like I'm authentically who I am. And so people know that when I'm not just telling them something and being a different way in my life. No, I'm being like this throughout. So number one is being authentically representing the brand. And then the other part is marketing. I mean, letting people know that this is available, that this is out there, and that I've been at it a long time and they're going to be safe when they explore. They don't have to be in a couple. They just have to want to be more full in their life. I mean, I've had every segment of the population. I've had people whose partners have died, and then they were like, now what am I going to do? That's including my father, who, when my mother died, my father was like, he said to me, I got to talk to you. What am I going to do? I'm going to start
You're
dating.
the expert.
And I said to him, buy condoms. And he said to me, no, like he couldn't fathom it. And I said, yeah, there's a lot of things floating around that weren't floating around when you were young, so he
Mhm.
became my student. But so I've had like widowers. I've had people who split and didn't know what they were going to do next. I've had people who are together. Maybe one comes or the other one comes to class. And then they realize like, there's a lot here. There's a lot that I didn't know about. And there's a lot to myself as a whole being that I never even dared to talk about with my partner or with anybody. So I think it's marketing to people who who really want to live a full life. I don't see how somebody can live a full life if they're not sexually expressed. I've even had,
Exactly.
in the old days, I had a few nuns and priests who left the church and got together. And I said, why did you come to me? They said, you're it. We like you and we trust you and we want to be with you if we're going to have a whole new life after the church. So I've had that too.
Love
Um,
that. There's a lot of really beautiful lessons in that, in like how you described it, that aligned authenticity of this is who I am, but allowing, like you've said so many times on this very short show, like it's expression. We've got to express. We have to allow people to see us, and then they can make an empowered decision. And that's a really powerful, and it's like more than marketing, really. It's your beingness and embodiment of your role.
totally.
So good. Lori, what is the best way for people to catch up with you, get to know you better?
Well, I think on Instagram actually, like Instagram these days is the place. You can find me at Laurie.handlers. It's Laurie dot Handlers. That's my Instagram handle. And I'd say that's where I express the most, both in stories and in reels and things that I'm posting. And if they came there, if they want to, if they come there, they could send me a comment, which I have like a free giveaway, which is called the 3 R's quiz. So they could just ask for the 3 R's quiz, and that tells you if you're in a relationship, if you're in resentment, resistance, or revenge, and what course of action to take as a result of taking that quiz. But I have
That's
so much
so
more. I
good.
mean, I have 15 years of podcasts and I have all kinds of things, plus my books,
For sure. And we'll
which,
make sure to
yeah,
include the links to all of that, dear listener, in the show notes below. Lori, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
it is my pleasure. It's so great to be asked the best questions. You know what I mean? Like the most direct questions, like, this is it. This is your life. So do you want to be happy as you can be, or do you want to be like wondering? I would rather be as happy as I can be.
With you right there. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
dear listener, I'm sure you have 3 friends who would love this episode. So make sure you grab the link to the episode, you text it to them, you send it to them on Messenger. And if you've got 30 seconds, please, please, please just take a few minutes to give us an honest review. Lori showed up so well here. We really appreciate her and all of our other guests. If you take 30 seconds to rate the podcast, it helps people to choose us when they're listening. So until our next episode, I'm so excited to see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, do what matters.